Welcome to the Worship 2.0 podcast. And today we are blessed to have the worship leader that led in that great song from the project Up to Zion. He also wrote four songs on that project, and then he was also the worship leader on Shalom Jerusalem, and he wrote 5 songs on that particular project. And he also did 25 other projects with Integrity Hosanna. So we are blessed to have with us today Paul Wilbur. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be with you today.
Did that song "Worthy is the Lamb" bring back any memories from that project Up to Zion?
It's impossible to hear one of the songs off of any of the projects and not get flooded with all kinds of remembrances and emotions and feelings and experiences. They all just come flooding back. It was an amazing almost 30 years as an artist with Integrity Music.
Yeah, that was back in 1991. And actually in that project you wrote 4 songs on there. You wrote "It Is Good," "Bless the Lord," "Great and Marvelous," "Who Is Like Thee." Yeah, that was a great project. And now, where was that done at, Paul?
Integrity Music went through several iterations. And so those early projects were intended to sound live. They wanted to capture a live experience, which is exactly where I was at in my whole desire for live praise and worship. I got born again 1977, picked up my guitar, and immediately started to write songs to Jesus, which, as I continued to recapture my Jewish identity, which really didn't mean much to me until I got born again, and then Yeshua took over the driver of my spiritual bus from Jesus because of my Jewish background and studies and all of my desires. But when I came to the Lord, I was very eager to have something authentic, not canned, not processed. And so my first group called Harvest, Jerry Williams, me, and Ed Carr.
Oh, yeah. We had them at our church, Harvest, a couple of times. Yeah.
Did you? When I was with the band?
Well, see, I was there up until 1998.
Okay.
So it would have been...
So First Assembly?
Yeah, First Assembly of God in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah, I was there a couple of times. So if it was just two guys that you hosted in Grand Rapids, I had left. I left in 1981 to be a worship leader, cantor, associate pastor at Beth Messiah Congregation in Rockville, Maryland, with Sid Roth and other well-known Messianic personalities to recapture my whole why God made me like he did. Mm-hmm. But back to that Up to Zion, I was hoping was going to be a real live experience. And I found out that in those early days, most of it was done in the studio. Then you take the tracks, not even stems back then, but stereo tracks. You play them along with a live band in an auditorium. You've rehearsed a choir and some background singers, and you have a guest worship leader, and then you capture that. You go back to the studio, mix it all together, and you have a semi-live experience.
Right.
That was actually the difference between Up to Zion in 1990 when we produced it. It was released in 91, and Shalom Jerusalem, which was of a whole other ilk, live orchestra, choir, band, singers, in Jerusalem, live audience, one chance to get it right, super expensive. And just as an aside, I'm preparing to go back to Jerusalem in 2 years to do that again for the 30th anniversary of Shalom Jerusalem.
Yeah,
just
that was
crazy.
1995. And then Mark Gasparo, he was the producer arranger.
Right.
One of my all-time favorite songs from that project is "In Your Presence, O God." I love that song.
Oh, yeah.
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 And
just did it yesterday in Spanish for an interview down in Argentina by Zoom. But that song, I've done that in Portuguese, Spanish, German, English, Hebrew. I think I even did it a little bit in Chinese when I was in mainland China back in the 90s. But crazy.
Great song, and you had great musicians there for that Shalom Jerusalem project. Yeah, that was a great project, and so that was right there in Jerusalem, and you had I see you had top-notch musicians plus a number of people right there in Jerusalem. The choir was that a special choir that you put together for that, besides the regular vocals with Leanne Albrecht and Jeff Hamlin, some of the other ones?
Well, Shalom Jerusalem, as I said before, was unique. It was very unique in lots of ways. It was done outside the United States. It was not birthed in a recording studio.
Yep.
We had half of the band or half of the orchestra was unsaved Israelis, which I was really questioning at first. How do we capture some authentic worship where half of the players are not worshipers as we are, but Israelis, but they were from the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra. So it all worked out. It started very hesitantly. Back in those days, Messianic Jewish believers like myself were really frowned upon, not allowed to make Aliyah to become citizens. It's still the same today and getting worse, actually, with the ultra-Orthodox taking over the government, but that's another whole story. But so we recorded that. There were 80 open mics on the platform with wedges for monitors, no in-ears, which is standard today, so that it makes production, mixing, the post work much easier. Plus, the budget grew from $400,000 to $800,000. This was back in the 90s when $100,000 was really $100,000. Doesn't go very far today, but so there were so many obstacles, Dave, in creating that. You mentioned Tom Brooks earlier, and Tom Brooks was really the one who I wanted to produce it. But after he heard the music, he told Michael Coleman, the owner, director, CEO of Integrity, he said, I don't know how to handle this music. You're going to need to get somebody else. I was super disappointed. I mean, I was bummed. I found that out. Our first meeting at Integrity, we're sitting around a big table planning out this dream of a lifetime for me to do my songs live in Jerusalem with choir, band, orchestra, background singers, dancers, shofars. The only thing we were missing was camels and Bedouins. But when I found out that Tom wasn't going to produce, I was really, really super disappointed.
Yeah.
And then met Mark Gasparo, who turned out to be just the right guy at just the right time in just the right place. Super talented, super convicted and devoted. And so that recording, Shalom Jerusalem, I re-recorded in Spanish, re-recorded in Portuguese, did some of those in German, and those songs are still alive today.
Yeah, and you wrote on that project, you wrote the Up to Jerusalem, Where Does My Help Come From? Sing Hallelujah, Blessed is He Who Comes, and Shalom Jerusalem. So, those are the 5 of the songs that you wrote for the project. Well, what are you doing nowadays, Paul? You're still writing, and it sounds like you're keeping very busy.
Keeping very busy. I travel. I'm looking around to see if my wife is listening. I'm gone almost every week, and I just got back from Germany. Next week I go to Uganda. It's a 5-day trip to do a 1-day worship event there, and then I'm off to Dominican Republic and Costa Rica, Israel. It's just San Diego, boring places like New Jersey, South Florida. And yes, I continue to write. The ministry continues with the second generation. My 2 sons have become my boss now. We've switched roles. They both married Jewish believers who are also musical, especially one of my daughters-in-law, who's the daughter of Joel Chernoff from the group Lamb back in the 70s and 80s. Yep. She's a very gifted producer, songwriter, and worship leader. She travels with me some, although she just gave birth to my 5th grandson.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Joshua generation is stepping up. They're taking us into the land. We continue to write together, travel together. It's quite a blessing to me, where other ministries, no matter how exciting they were, find it very difficult, like in secular work as well, to have a legacy. And God has really blessed us to have that. I'm very grateful.
Now, how can people get? Do you have a website that they can get your recordings, your material, that they can reach out to you to do that? Is there a website?
Sure. Yeah, we're on a website, wilburministries.com, or you can just type in Paul Wilbur, and Wilbur with a U, the German spelling, WILBUR.com. And that takes you to the website. We also have an app on the App Store, Wilbur Ministries. All of our videos and teachings and DVDs and music, it's all free, which makes life a little bit more challenging. How much should we spend on projects these days? Because people don't buy CDs anymore. They just download off of the cloud onto their watches and listen on their iPods, and it's a whole new world. But we continue on the same level. Our last project, Roar from Zion, that we did live in Jerusalem, I hired the Nashville Symphony Orchestra, not a keyboard with nice pads, although they sound really good these days, the digital stuff. But no, I want real people with real hearts, playing real instruments, worshiping a real God.
There you go. Which takes me to my last question, which is, what is your take on where worship is at these days in the local church?
Well, that's a huge question. Of course, it depends. It depends on what church, what flavor. We wrestled all of these things to a place of where we felt comfortable in our own expressions back in the 70s, where people were setting aside hymnals in preference for opaque projectors with words projected up on a screen, so you weren't confined to all 17 verses on page 235.
Right.
And we thought we were pretty radical back then.
Yeah.
And then we were setting, the Psalms in simple choruses that everybody could sing, and you can repeat the chorus, and you can take your time and sit cross-legged on the floor and all the rest. Today, we have advanced by incredible lengths with regards to musicianship, instruments, technology, the playability, the quality of the songs, if you will, going through big processes depending on who you're listening to, whether it's Jesus People or it's Integrity Music. But the local church continues to be an expression of the ever-changing dynamics. And so we've been involved in startup churches here in Jacksonville, several, as well as a very well-established mega church of 20,000. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, you go to a well-established church with a big budget. So you've got $1 million sound system, people that are hired who are really excellent as worship leaders, musicians, maybe not so much as disciples, but they've got all the technical stuff down, and not to be critical at all, because here, at least in Jacksonville, a church called Celebration, where I was involved on staff 2 separate times, the quality of the worship is amazing. And they write their own stuff. They harvest from some of the best that's around and weave it into a real experience. And their purpose every week is to have the presence and a demonstration of heaven there in the sanctuary. I wish that was true, in some of the startups that try with tracks, no instruments, and a very small sound system. It tends to be, it feels like we're back in the 70s again. Where is worship going today? In general, I get the sense that people, no matter what size church they're in, even traditional churches, I hear them say they're after the presence.
There you
go.
That
word presence is an interesting word. The word presence in Hebrew, just to throw in a little Hebrew for our listeners today, is the word hapanim. It's plural, and it means the faces. So if we're saying we're after the presence of God, we're saying we're after the faces of God, all of his faces, depending on how you might understand that. But El Shaddai, the one who is all-powerful, the El Elyon, he's the God of all gods. I won't get theological on you, but Adonai Rofecha, I'm the God who heals you. All of these faces of God, the names of God, call on the name. But the invitation from the people for him, Yahweh, Jesus, Yeshua, Holy Spirit, to manifest there in the midst of his people. Doesn't the word say that we are living stones being joined together to become a dwelling? Well, what's in the dwelling? When we gather together, something's dwelling there. It's my preference that it's the presence of God.
If ever we needed the presence of God, it's today in the world that we live in. You know, we can't settle for just shallowness, going through the motions, whatever, but really to be in God's presence. And I appreciate your insight into that, Paul, and how the Lord is using you and has used you in the past and will continue to use you. And I thank you for being with us today on this podcast. And as I do the outro here, if you can hang on for just a minute, I got just a quick thing I want to share before I let you go here. But I hope maybe we can get you back on here again if you're ever available.
Sure. This is easy. I mean, we just scratched the surface.
There you go. Exactly. We just scratched the surface. So thank you again, and hang on just a minute as I play the outro. And what better song to do the outro with is In Your Presence, O God. We hope that you'll help spread the word about worship2.0.com, where our mission is to help people everywhere at any time experience the presence of God. Have a blessed day.